So I just turned on the channel, but you guys should now see my screen. Basically, I have to do all over again. Um, all right, so welcome everyone. If you're just new to it, I'm not sure. I was basically recording for like 7 minutes without this being turned on. But we're covering the markets at the moment, and I want to address the. We have a big drawdown at the moment. Obviously, Challenge is still up, but we basically have a big round trip on BTC, and I wanted to explain why I'm holding it. Um, and I'm just making sure someone views that. Okay. Um, I want to explain my rationale into this, and that's basically what we saw is yesterday. We saw a lot of people get excited about STRC as a product from MicroStrategy. There is this website that's called strc.live, and STRC is the new. I mean, it's not a new product, but it's one of the product offerings of MicroStrategy, which I don't think is good long term, but short term you can derive good price action momentum from this. The books are very thin overall in crypto at the moment, and so any like big moment like big spot buyers is going to be moving the price because you also have a lot of hedges at the moment. So the point is the STRC products had their yields distributed yesterday, and you could buy STRC on the day and get the dividend on the day. So what that meant is you had a large inflow and big volume. And what I'm trying to make sense of is we saw here that the average cost of the MicroStrategy reported on the 9th of March. So I wonder, for example, the CVD that we saw here, how much of this is MSTR led, that eventually got fueled by shorts as well, covering. And you definitely don't want to, like this, for example, and the sharp OI decrease tells me that it was not shorts that were covering, but rather just long, or whether the momentum here was longs and not short. So I wonder how much of this OI, for example, is spot, not spot, sorry, longs or shorts. And the thing is, if I look at STRC, I think a lot of people got excited yesterday on STRC as a product and were betting on a range deviation to the upside. And I can't, and I think this is what led to the outperformance of BTC versus the equity markets. So if we look at SPX, it's really not looking too good. And when I'm trying to get a view on the market, so I'm like, do I have a long or short bias? And if I have a long bias, that means I can't go short. And I always trying to put myself in the shoes of the other person. And for example, now you'll basically never get me to be long crypto, like short time frame. The reason is we don't know how much of the rally here is just led by MicroStrategy. And if there's only a singular buyer, then there's only we can only go so high, and then we'll eventually mean revert pretty quickly. And that's exactly what happened there. Like that drawdown was basically when MicroStrategy was not involved, because we know his average price is in the 71. So it's very close to the top here. And I wonder how much of this pattern is gonna replay. and overall don't want to be long on the range highs. You still have to salute and respect the strength of crypto, in spite of VIX being super high and SPX starting to roll over. But for me to be long, um, I honestly don't see a scenario where I want to long, unless we see SPX just bouncing off. But that probably means I'm taking a big haircut. And usually in crypto, if you wait too much for validation, like at some point you want to step in and take the risks. I just think that the risk of I don't get the on the downside. I think it's hard for BTC not to be correlated, especially on weekend moves, for example. Because if someone is about to get margin called and has BTC or crypto in their assets, it's very easy to liquidate. And so I still think you have high degree of correlation to the downside. Upside not so much. But what we saw, for example, on the yen carry trade was, that weekend we saw BTC move down tremendously, and the setup is fairly similar. So a rule I have is, if, like, first I don't want to be long on a Friday when the S&P is rolling over, but also when VIX is going higher, and VIX is still pretty high, and I think the headline risks are still there, and but I want to say at some point we'll have to cover the shorts and try and pick a direction or just stay flat. But overall, as I said on Telegram, in a bear market, which we are, in for BTC, it is much easier to hold a short position because you'll eventually be more right than wrong in a bear market. And to me, that'd be insane to just go long now when I don't think you just headline risks are too high. For example, you could have I don't think people are pricing in the fact that almost can stay, and again, not a macro expert here, but can stay stuck for a long time. If you have boots on the ground, what happens there. How is this going to be priced in? I do think that Trump is going to tackle at some point, because Trump doesn't have an incentive for this to be going for a long time. Nor do I think he has incentives to bring boots on the ground. But I don't think the persons longing crypto now, I think they long it on relative strength. But what if the relative strength is just STRC led and so MicroStrategy? And I've been in crypto long enough to understand, you shouldn't have a recency bias, and so your short-term momentum can roll over really quickly. And there's certain, I think there is always going to be a better trade, and I think now your risk reward is pretty you're probably maybe target 80k here, but the thing is the odds of upside vs downside in a bear market are obviously much lower. And I'm not calling for I don't have very low targets for BTC. I just think until we have uncertainty in the market, you just play it like a range. And where we messed up is our entry on the short is bad, so it's harder to manage. But realistically, if I'm proven that 72 sticks, and otherwise you just play it like a range. And we enter shorts on range highs and we enter longs on range lows. You keep it simple. I've said on Telegram that's what makes this environment fairly easy to trade. But now you have to take into considerations the external environment. Like you have to understand where the bid is coming from, and STRC is for example telling you that the bid is not so organic. In the case of STRC as a product, like basically it's basically this, right? It's they're able to buy as long as, well, they'll get volume as far as I understand, whenever you're close to a dividend. And we're just so far out now. We just had the dividend paid out yesterday. Don't want to do any mistakes here, but I think we're right here. So if that fades away, then what is left, and then you can quickly go from relative strength to relative weakness. But I have to say though, there is a big long setup that's gonna take place at some point. I think for me to be interested in a long, if we take away the macro setups, etc., I think if you flush that OI down to baseline, basically all the OI ramp up that you had, I think, if we are able to clean this over the weekend, maybe there is a tight long setup to take with tight invalidation, because although I'm saying all of that macro wise, you have to respect the markets, and markets so far has told me, at least on this BTC short, that we're wrong. The other trade we took is this hype short. So we've deployed basically 1x the margin on the BTC short, on the hype short. The reason to me on this hype short is hype, I think, is the dumbest asset to short in crypto, because it's the one that has the most fundamental value. But I think if there is a short to be taken on the hype, it's at the range highs, and basically where we were. I keep things fairly simple here, but that's to me is a range that we'll play, and just playing the up and the down of the range. And I also think that hype are the last cohort to capitulate. Like a lot of people hold hype, but I think that's gonna be more for short-term trade than anything else. I'm not gonna hold this to the range low specifically. More so cut at like 31, 32 if we ever get there, or like cover rather. Now in terms of, I'm just checking now if we have any questions. All right, cool, we don't. So now in terms of product, where we stand is, so we had a big AMA yesterday. I think we had some connection issues between, like, in the AMA, so that was not ideal. But I'm pretty happy with the trading terminal so far, as we've troubleshoot most of the issues that are relevant to the terminal, which was the goal. I wanted to get done with the dashboard and the analytics, so we did change the dashboard a tiny bit. So like the UI here should be fairly new to you, and we have a code that's gonna get shipped to make this better on the next release. And then we're working through the analytics, so that looks very ugly at the moment, but we've exposed all of the analytics endpoints to the front end, so now it's just a matter of cosmetic and making this beautiful. Wait, did I lose you guys? All right, no, I think we're back. All right, so I mean that's all I wanted to share. Really on the product side is just terminal is very close to being complete. Now we're working through the UI on the dashboard, analytics and leaderboard. That's really light work compared to the trading terminal. So we expect this to not take so long, and accordingly, we will QA this with the community. So yeah, that's all. I think tomorrow will be a lot more product focused, but honestly, I have to go back to the grind at the moment. So thanks for tuning in, and I see you tomorrow.